Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com.
So there was this big shock that happened last week. We're all, Melbourne, the sporting capital of the world, we're all getting pumped that in 2026 we were going to have the Commonwealth Games, and then our Premier comes out and summarily announces his execution by saying that they're going to cancel the games due to cost overrun, or not cost overruns, but financial constraints and concerns. Basically, that it was going to cost 2 or 3 times more than was expected at the time. I raise it only because I don't know because I'm not exactly the hugest sporting person in the world, so I wasn't overtly fussed, but at the same time I did recognize the shock value of the story because it's not something that kind of happens every day.
Yes, it's an interesting situation. Now, some people are saying the costs aren't as high as the Premier said, but I think it's interesting because I can't believe that any politician would cancel something like the Commonwealth Games on a whim. So there's something or some reason that obviously has given Daniel Andrews the courage to cancel the games. I think that's the first thing we can deduct from what we've seen. But I do think, either way, that the Commonwealth Games is a friendly games. It's meant to be, 50 odd nations getting together and having, a bit of a run around and preparing, in their own elite programs for the Olympics. But like most things that are broadcast, I think, what's happened over the last few years is it's sort of been conflated to an Olympic level, and that's why the costs have gone to the levels they have. So rather than just being a meeting of elite athletes from around the world, it's now sort of kind of more a show, and with the shows come all sorts of expenses and sponsors and advertisers, etc., etc. And I think it's far more complicated than what seems to be just a figure that's a little bit too much.
And although I don't doubt that costs were a significant concern, I did find it fascinating that the bandwagon jumped on the idea that of the idea of, are they still relevant in an environment where the monarchy is being questioned and all of that? And I just found all of that sub angle that sort of started coming out afterwards quite interesting, only in the sense that that's immediately where it went.
Yeah, well, that's right, because, it's an opinion piece that's sort of got a bit of traffic, and straight away it becomes news, doesn't it? I mean, it's a little bit humorous, certainly for me, that we'd go from cancelling the games because of cost and then saying, well, that's not true, and the Premier's not telling us the truth about what's going on, and then questioning whether the games are relevant at all. Like, if that's the case, then he's probably made the right decision. I don't know. I'm no expert, but even at $2 billion, if that's the case, then it doesn't seem much point.
Well, the ultimate conspiracy theory being that he pulled the ultimate negotiation tactic, and that somehow next week they would have renegotiated for like half the cost or something like that. I thought that was quite amusing as well.
Yeah, well, I don't think you drop an A-bomb like that and get it back a week later. I think something's happened. And, I mean, he seemed pretty firm on it. And as he said himself, he didn't find it a hard decision, which can only mean that he's very confident in his decision. So for whatever reasons, he's made the call. And, the only possible reason that any person in that position would cancel a contract like that to host the games is because the pain of proceeding would be far worse than the short-term pain he's going to cop now. So, and that would go for any politician. So he's obviously seen something and he doesn't want to wear it 2 years down the track, 3 years down the track. He's made the call.
Absolutely. The best of two bad options, or whatever it happens to be.
That's right.
Yeah. So All right, we'll just shift track now, and we're talking a little bit about Oppenheimer, the new Christopher Nolan film that's coming out now, and uh, I found found this interesting. Now, like back in the day, if I'd seen this trailer at the height of what I think was a more interesting period of movies, I would have been out there straight away, watching it with bells on. And I did. I'll admit, when I saw the trailers, and and obviously I do. Have a strong interest in 20th century history, and particularly that period, and obviously that this film is going to play to that as well. And knowing that Christopher Nolan does have that sort of unique point of view on the execution of his films, that I still had that feeling of, oh yeah, this might be good to go watch. Particularly the idea that you could watch a normal narrative Hollywood film in IMAX was another thing that I thought might be intriguing. For me, I still don't think I'll go watch it, because I just, at the end of the day, just come to it thinking that I've passed the idea of that being an interesting experience. I don't know. I don't know if this is quite where I wanted to take this, but I'll say it anyway. Something happened, post COVID period. I don't know what it is, but I just don't find what I would call a legacy entertainment venue as interesting anymore. And I've always been like that. If at some point, if I don't find it's relevant or whatever, so whatever it is relevant, I just kind of move on from it, as opposed to trying to recapture whatever the magic was. Because equally speaking, Barbie's opening up the same weekend, and you're just kind of thinking, well, that's going to make more money than Oppenheimer, and what world are we living in?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, maybe that's a segue into the whole other opinion piece that came out this week. I mean, God forbid the actors are getting ripped off. AI is going to take over. Extras are going to work for one day and then be exploited for the next 30 years. I mean, I've never heard such ridiculous stuff before, because obviously contracts are going to change immediately, and those nasty evil empire people at the studios are not going to get their hands on your image and likeness without payment. So there you go. That's where it's gone to. But I agree with you, because if you look at the hype around the movie Barbie, what is the film actually about? You've got to go and see. And then, if you go and see it in the first week, when, after they've already racked up half a billion dollars, doesn't matter actually if it turns out to be a dud. Oppenheimer's interesting because it's a historically based film, even though it does omit the contribution that Australian physicist Sir Mark Oliphant made to the nuclear bomb. But that aside, it's historical, it's going to have tension, and it's going to show insight, and there will be some amazing cinematography in there, which is why they're reopening the IMAX cinemas to show it. But I think you're right, Ben. I mean, that aside, what else have we got? Mission Impossible 8. I think the whole AI taking over the film industry, it doesn't matter. All AI could do is possibly make better films at the rate we're going.
It does say something about and that people, if they're not aware already, that this whole focus group testing that Hollywood does, that ends up impacting all of the films they make to within an inch of their lives, and basically sanitizes any individual artistic expression in there, which kind of makes Oppenheimer unique in a way, because Nolan can thank his lucky stars that he's been able to turn himself into a brand on his own, which is what used to happen. So anyone that was around 70s, 80s, and 90s, the films were actually marketed. The brand was the director, or the brand was the star, or maybe it was a combination of the two. And that's what actually sold the film. I used to remember, if Spielberg had his name on a film, I'd be going to see it regardless of what the subject matter was about. And Nolan kind of has that as well, but he's really kind of the only one still left standing that can.
Well, it's true. I agree. After James Cameron's last effort, I think you're right. Christopher Nolan can still make a big film with meaning and depth. But like you, I don't know if that's going to be enough to get me down to an IMAX to see it. And I think that's the problem with the film industry. Don't worry about AI. The last 10 years has seen Hollywood basically self-destruct any artistic or creative merit in the filmmaking process. Good on them. They make great films that apparently people are still going to and love, and they're lots of fun, and they sell lots and lots of merch. Love it. Great. Good on them. But, it's probably not even right they call themselves Hollywood anymore.
That's right. A good film is one that makes profit, right? That's the main thing. And I can actually see it too, because another turn off for me was when I looked up the IMAX ticket pricing here, and it was like $50 for a ticket. And I thought,
OMG, are you kidding?
Nah, and I said, nope, I'm not doing it. I'll just watch it when it becomes part of one of my subscriptions.
God, that's going to want to be one good film.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and just finally, we have to touch on this, although I guess it's a couple of weeks old now, but the Thread story is actually quite interesting. And for those who've been under a rock, obviously, this is the big Zuck's attempt to enter the market or space that Twitter's inhabiting due to Twitter's current sort of problems, shall we say, in terms of how it's going. And it had a bit of an explosive start. A whole bunch of people went over. Maybe, it's kind of cooling off now over time and all of that. But it kind of raises some interesting questions, because Twitter was basically dominant. There was no one else that was going to knock it off its perch. And due to some what you would call self-inflicted own goals or wounds or anything that I guess Elon's, been driving over at Twitter. Obviously, Zuck was sitting in the background taking notes, and he kind of thought, oh, maybe there's an opportunity here. And look, I don't for 1 second think that if a scenario develops that the space inhabited by Twitter is taken over by Zuckerberg, that's going to be anyway a good thing, because it won't be. But I did find it quite interesting that, it's almost like he was the good guy all of a sudden, because Elon was like doing so poorly with Twitter, and Zuck's like stuck his hand up and gone, "Hey, I've got something over here," even though it almost looks exactly the same as Twitter.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I personally think Twitter's been weak probably for the last 10 years, and its influence has been sort of, waning. And then Elon came along and just shook the whole thing up. And I think maybe he's throwing too many basics out with the bathwater there. When something like Meta comes along and copies a platform, which is effectively what they've done with Threads, they know what they're doing. They've done the sums, because, they're not going to do it if there isn't any advantage to it. They smell or sense a weakness. They smell blood. They're going in for the kill. And, they don't even need to get everyone from Twitter across to Threads to make it a win. They just need to get enough. And I think what we're seeing here is consolidation in the tech industry and consolidation in the socials, because if Meta really gets any degree of success through Threads, then that will, they'll effectively dominate the entire social spectrum.
And that's the part where I said I don't know if that's going to be a good thing by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, we all remember what happened to Microsoft in the 90s.
A little bit of antitrust thrown on top.
Maybe. And what, can you see a Zuckerberg Foundation in the future?
Yeah, the second half of the big story. But the one thing I did want to highlight here is that I actually think it still doesn't bode well for Meta and Facebook, because in the sense that it's kind of continuing to highlight Facebook's irrelevancy, because the biggest successes, at least from what I can see in terms of what's driving Facebook, yeah, they're probably still getting financial compensation through Facebook. That's pretty good. but it's actually the ancillary apps that had nothing to do with Facebook that, like you said, they're either bought out, these apps like Instagram or WhatsApp, or this kind of copy and paste thing with Threads, which actually aren't really part of Facebook's core existence, so to speak. And I would just find it amusing that they have to pivot to something that, like, what happens if like Facebook goes by the way of the dinosaur, because people are just like, I actually find, like I said, its usefulness as a platform compared to some of the others. Yes, it's still being used, but not in the way that it used to be used. And I would just find it amusing, or fate or whatever, that Facebook's success is going to be based on things they've bought or copied after the fact.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. But I think, as I say, I think what you're seeing at Meta is smart people being clever. And they're probably taking a line out of Apple's thinking where they don't mind if they cannibalize Facebook now, because if it brings more people to Meta, they've got growth. And I think that's really what this is all about. It's creating new growth. They can go back to the shareholders and say, look, we're growing. With Threads, they've also got a sort of platform that not only sort of will appeal to Twitter, but, potentially with a little bit of, a jig or a fresh up or whatever they want to do with it, can go a bit more the TikTok way too. So, they've seen that they need to change. They need to be more flexible, and they've found a niche that they're going to water heavily and try to get to grow.
Then we'll just have to wait and see if Elon manages to strike back at some point with any of that.
Do you think he'll come up with a Facebook platform?
Why not? Stranger things have happened, right? All right, we might wrap it up there. It'll be interesting to see. If nothing else, it's made me even more convinced that I don't want to use social media outside of just posting when we put our new podcasts up every week. Other than that, I've got it switched off.
Yeah, I think that's very wise, especially in the modern age.
Absolutely. All right, so don't forget to check out our website, scitechculture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, RSS feeds, and watch us on any and all of your devices. And we're greatly appreciative of you visiting our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.